Russian missiles pummeled civilian targets in Ukraine again on Thursday, leaving 7 people buried under the rubble of an apartment block in the southern city of Mykolaiv, according to local officials, as the Ukrainian authorities said 17 people had died in strikes a day earlier. The latest attacks brought the death toll in a barrage of Russian cruise missiles and drone attacks to more than 3 dozen since Monday, as Moscow's intensified targeting of civilian areas adds urgency to Ukraine's demands for more weapons and prompts swift new promises of military aid from the United States and other Western nations. As defense officials from NATO countries meet in Brussels to discuss speeding weapons to Ukraine, the White House said this week that it was working to deliver 2 air defense systems, and Ukraine said it had received the first of a series of ultramodern air defense systems from Germany. Still, top Western defense officials have acknowledged that Kyiv needs yet more weapons to counter Russian strikes. Moscow on Monday unleashed a barrage of strikes across the country, including areas such as Lviv in the west, and Kyiv, the capital, that had been relatively unscathed, in retaliation for an attack on the Kerch Strait Bridge, which connects Russia with the Crimean Peninsula. President Vladimir Putin of Russia said the explosion was a terrorist attack and blamed Ukraine. Kyiv has not officially claimed responsibility, but senior Ukrainian officials have said the blast was the work of Ukrainian intelligence agencies. Russia's attacks have aimed at civilian infrastructure, including electrical lines, and have included areas away from the front lines as well as cities that have been struck repeatedly throughout the 7-month war. 8 missiles landed overnight in Mykolaiv, an embattled city near the Black Sea coast, the head of the regional military administration, Vitaly Kim, wrote on the Telegram messaging app on Thursday. An 11-year-old boy was rescued after spending 6 hours buried in the crumbled 5-story building, Mr. Kim said. The city's mayor, Alexander Sinkovic, said that the top 2 floors of the building were completely destroyed. 7 people remained unaccounted for under the wreckage, he said, and there was no immediate information on their condition. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has redoubled his pleas for air defense weapons, saying this week that helping Ukraine to protect the sky is one of the most important humanitarian tasks for Europe of our time. Early Thursday, the Kyiv region was hit with drone attacks, a regional military official said, as air raid sirens went off across a swath of central and western Ukraine. Although there were no injuries, the strike has added to anxiety in an area that had largely been spared attacks since the early days of Russia's invasion. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, a senior official in Mr. Zelensky's office, said that 11 people were killed in missile strikes on Wednesday in the Dnipropetrovsk region of central Ukraine and 1 person was wounded. He said in a post on Telegram that 2 people were killed and 13 others wounded in the hard-hit southern Zaporizhia region, while in the Mykolaiv region itself 2 people were killed on Wednesday and 6 others were injured. The Zaporizhia region has borne the brunt of Russia's recent attacks. The regional police chief said that at least 73 people have been killed there since late September, including 30 who died when 3 missiles hit a convoy of people leaving the main city on September 30th. Russia has in the past denied that it targets civilian areas and accused Ukraine of shelling civilians in areas of the country that Moscow and its proxy forces control. On Thursday, the pro-Russian mayor of the city of Donetsk, Alexei Kalemzin, said on Telegram that Ukrainian shelling had damaged a hospital in the city. His comments were reported by Russia's state news agency, TASS. Brussels, NATO's Secretary-General vowed on Thursday that Kyiv's allies would stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes and that NATO would provide more air defense systems to allow Ukraine to continue countering Russian cruise missiles and drones. The official, Jens Stoltenberg, made the comments in brief remarks with Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin III at a press event at the start of a day-long meeting of defense ministers from member states aimed at reaffirming support for Ukraine. The ministerial meeting follows discussions held Wednesday during the 6th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, a grouping of about 50 nations that are supporting Kyiv with military and humanitarian aid. We need to stand up for a rules-based international order, for our core values, and again, the U.S. mission in NATO and the international community is essential, Mr. Stoltenberg said. Mr. Austin reiterated the United States' commitment to NATO's mutual defense provision under Article 5 of the alliance's charter, and reaffirmed support for expanding the alliance by adding Finland and Sweden, which applied for membership this year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Kyiv, Ukraine, Rolling blackouts are plaguing towns and cities across Ukraine after widespread Russian attacks this week that officials say damaged about 30% of the country's electrical infrastructure. While experts say the country had prepared for such strikes, officials have urged people to conserve energy, and it could be weeks before repairs to the system are finished. Many in the country, a supplier of electricity to Western Europe, believe that more must be done to secure the supply heading into winter. Assaults on the country's energy system continued on Wednesday, with reports of strikes on power infrastructure in Kamiansk, an industrial city on the Dnipro River in eastern Ukraine. There is a serious fire and destruction. Rescuers are taming the flames, Valentin Reznichenko, the head of the regional military administration, wrote in a statement on Telegram. Then the power engineers will try to restore the equipment. Elon Musk has denied reports he spoke to Vladimir Putin before posting a Twitter poll with his suggestions for ending Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ian Bremmer, head of the Eurasia Group political risk consultancy, alleged that Mr. Musk had personally told him about the conversation with Mr. Putin. But Mr. Musk has now refuted this. "I have spoken to Putin only once, and that was about 18 months ago. The subject matter was space," Mr. Musk tweeted. Last week, the Tesla CEO asked his 107.7 million followers to vote on ways to resolve the Ukraine war. The suggestions included a proposal to hold votes in parts of Ukraine occupied by Russia that the Kremlin says it has annexed. His comments were welcomed by Moscow. The multi-billionaire said, "Russia leaves if that is will of the people." President Putin has already declared 4 Ukrainian regions to be part of Russia, following so-called referendums denounced as fraudulent by Kyiv and its Western allies. Russia does not fully control any of the 4 regions. Mr. Musk also suggested the world should formally recognize Crimea, illegally annexed by Moscow in 2014, as part of Russia. In a newsletter, Mr. Bremmer wrote that Mr. Musk told him the Russian president was prepared to negotiate, but only if Crimea remained under Russian control, if Ukraine accepted a form of permanent neutrality, and if Kyiv recognized Russia's annexation of Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhia. Mr. Bremmer said the SpaceX boss told him that Mr. Putin said these goals would be accomplished, no matter what, and that there was the potential of a nuclear strike if Ukraine invaded Crimea. But Mr. Musk has since denied the reports. Mr. Musk's initial poll caused widespread controversy. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said people proposing Ukraine give up on its people and land must stop using word peace as an euphemism to let Russians murder and rape thousands more innocent Ukrainians, and grab more land. Russian chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov called Mr. Musk's tweet moral idiocy, repetition of Kremlin propaganda, a betrayal of Ukrainian courage and sacrifice. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov welcomed Mr. Musk's suggestions, stating, "It is very positive that somebody like Elon Musk is looking for a peaceful way out of this situation." Early in the war, the billionaire gained widespread popularity in Ukraine after sending a number of his Starlink internet terminals to the country. He was subsequently invited to visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But his recent tweets have seen that relationship sour, with Mr. Zelensky last week hitting out at his Twitter polls. U.S. federal law prevents private citizens from conducting foreign affairs without the permission or involvement of the U.S. government. The Logan Act was signed into law by President John Adams in 1799, but nobody has ever been prosecuted under it.